Now to the latest on Israel's war with Hamas. Today, U.S. officials said they want Israel to scale back its massive assault on Gaza by the end of the year and transition to a more targeted approach where Israeli commandos go after Hamas leaders but cause fewer civilian casualties. Israel, however, signaled it has no plans to slow down, with its defense minister saying today that the war will last several months. For more on this, we're joined by Enia Krivine, Senior Director of the Foundation for Defense of Democracy's Israel program. Enia, welcome back to the show. It's good to see you.
Good to see you, Lindsay. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so we have seen a little bit change in tone from the administration. Do you think that they're going to buckle under pressure?
Thanks, Lindsay. So, yeah, I think the change started right around Thanksgiving, actually, is when I noticed it, which was 8 weeks into the ground campaign. And you started hearing from the administration, from the White House, from State Department, Secretary of Defense, these conditions being placed on continued U.S. support. So the bottom line was, hey, we're still with you, but you need to, A, limit civilian casualties. Oh, and by the way, there's a time limit. Your clock is running down on how long the U.S. can back this war. So Israel's now faced with this really tough set of demands. On the one hand, limiting civilian casualties, and on the other hand, moving faster. And the result of this is been seen in the second phase of the war in Gaza. The first, of course, was the north, where Israel went in with heavy air power, artillery, before they sent in their ground soldiers. And now in the south, they're acting in a much more constrained way. They're limiting their fire, and they're sending their soldiers out into harm's way with less backup from heavy artillery and air power. And what this has resulted in is a spike in Israeli casualties in Gaza, which is not playing well in Israel. I've seen multiple accounts of Israelis directing anger at the leadership for prioritizing the lives of Gazans over the lives of their own men and women in uniform.
And I think we just see how ugly war can be at the end of this. You know, it's interesting. Israel is our greatest ally in the Middle East, and we typically see the U.S. hug in public and criticize in private, but that's not what the Biden administration has been doing as of late. They have been criticizing in public. How is Israel seeing this change in posture from the Biden administration?
So I think it's tough for Israel. Israel wants nothing more than to stay on side with the Americans. I think that is not only at a leadership level for their diplomatic cover and just being on side with their greatest ally, but I think at the military level, the U.S. Provides arms to Israel and is a very strategic ally in a difficult region. But even all the way down to its citizens and its soldiers who are fighting this campaign, they see themselves as a Western democracy. They are inherently pro-Israel down to the last Israeli. And I think it's tough for them as they're looking and seeing this sea change. However, I have not seen a chip in their resolve. The events of October 7th remain seared in their psyche, and I do not see any wavering from Israelis on their willingness to make the huge sacrifices that they're having to make from the top down. I mean, one of Gadi Eisenkot, who is a very decorated general of the IDF and is one of the very few people sitting on the war cabinet, lost a son several days ago, which just shows this is a people's army. People from every walk of life serve in this army, and in the military, and every casualty is felt. So again, sort of bringing it back to the original point, this is the lives that Israel is sending in, and the way that those casualties are viewed is going to ultimately determine how Israelis will play out the rest of the war.
We saw this week that President Biden actually warned Israel that they're losing support on the international stage. And we also saw this week that the UN General Assembly voted overwhelmingly to have a ceasefire in Gaza. If you look at the IDF, if you look at Israel, they have gone out of their way to show what they are doing to protect civilian life. But do you think that they could be doing more? Because it is undoubtedly that the world is watching.
That's for sure, Lindsay. And the United the United Nations Security Council resolution for a ceasefire, I think not a lot of people understand what a ceasefire would mean for this conflict. A ceasefire means that Hamas remains intact. A ceasefire today means that Hamas remains in control of Gaza. And that is Israel's #1 priority in this war, is to make sure that Hamas is not control. So essentially, a ceasefire would ensure a Hamas victory. If good-meaning people want to end this conflict, they should be demanding a Hamas surrender, because that would end the war tomorrow. If Hamas unconditionally surrendered and returned the 147 hostages, including Americans, children, babies, that Hamas is holding, it would end the war.
Enia Krivine, always appreciate your time and your insights. Thanks for being with us this evening.
Thank you so much.